Good day, I'm Derek Fildebrand, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. Today is November 17th. I'm joined, as usual, by Western Standard news editor Dave Naylor.
Hello, Derek.
Hello. And as usual, by Western Standard Alberta political columnist and host of The Corey Morgan Show, Corey Morgan.
Good afternoon.
That's a good name of the show.
We've put a lot of thought into it.
Corey Morgan Show.
Yeah.
It took a lot of work.
Good.
Yeah. Today, we're going to be talking about the devastating floods overtaking British Columbia right now. We've got reporters on the ground there. So we're going to be talking about what's happening, the response, and what actions the provincial government there is expected to be taking today. The United Conservative Party, so united going into their convention this weekend in Calgary, Alberta at the Grey Eagle Casino, where I'm told you can smoke. I'm taking him smoking again for the weekend. At the very least, I'm going to get some cigars. Like roulette and cigars, it's just cool. It's cool. So we're going to be there smoking all weekend, but we're going to be bringing the whole crew, myself, Dave, Corey, James. We'll also probably have the uncensored panel. That'd be Bruce McAllister, Danielle Smith, Rob Anderson, some of our other columnists, Josh Andrus. We're bringing the whole crew there. We're going to be reporting live. So, of course, you can watch westernstandardonline.com for updates on news and opinion coming there, but we'll also be broadcasting live Jason Kenney's speech, and we'll be providing reporting from what's happening in the convention. A lot of drama is expected to be taking place. We're going to be talking about it here, and we'll be talking about it on the weekend as it goes down. Speaking of drama and leaders with some problems, Erin O'Toole has moved to expel and has succeeded in expelling Senator Bathurst. What's her Denise
Bathurst.
Denise Bathurst from the Conservative Senate caucus. She's gone because she started a petition to have a review of Erin O'Toole's leadership. If only Jason Kenney had the remaining political capital to expel people for even saying there should be a vote on his leadership.
He may be in a room by himself then.
Yeah. That's what we've got for today. But before we get going, I want to thank all of our Western Standard members for your continued loyal support. Without you, we couldn't do what we do. If you want to support our work and get unlimited access to Western Standard content, go to westernstandardonline.com right now. Now, I'm waiting. I'll wait. Right now, click on membership. Fill it out. You can try it free for 15 days. It's only $10 a month or $99 a year for unlimited Western Standard content. You're going to love it. Promise it. So let's get started. I guess with the least entertaining news that we're going to go through today. Assuming my mic didn't just die there. British Columbia underwater. Dave, fill us in.
Terrible scenes in British Columbia, Derek. It's what forecasters are calling a atmospheric river, whatever the heck that means.
Sounds scary.
But it brought record rainfalls and record floodings. Basically, if you want to drive from Alberta to Vancouver, you cannot do so. You'd have to make a 12-hour detour through the United States. The roads are washed out. Highway 5, the Coquihalla, which is everybody's favorite route into Vancouver, has suffered major infrastructure damage, including being washed away completely in 5 different sections. Main Highway 1, the old route into Vancouver, is underwater. There's highways covered in mud. There's people missing in the mudslides. There's hundreds of people trapped. A church in Hope has taken in dozens and dozens of people who just can't get home because the highways are blocked. The government of BC may call a state of emergency today, but it's not getting any better. Residents of areas around Abbotsford near the Sumas River have been evacuated and warned of, quote, catastrophic flooding. Pumping station there is failing, even though they spent most of the night trying to build a dam around it. And they say if that goes, the consequences will be unbelievable. The entire area will be turned into a lake. So there's mandatory evacuations all over the place. But, Alberta takes the blame because Elizabeth May says it's fossil fuels that are starting it. So
Actually, in particular, it's Corey's fault.
it's Corey's fault. So,
Sorry
we'll
about
apologize to British Columbians for that. One woman has been killed. She was found washed away in a mudslide on one of the highways. So really bad scenes. It's, stores in the interior are going to be cut off from like fresh fruit and stuff because you cannot get that stuff off the port in Vancouver. There's no rail traffic in or out of Vancouver. And obviously there's no commercial trucks going there because the roads are not open. So it's going to be a very bad scene, and it's going to continue to be for several days to come, Dirk.
Well, normally we talk about political chaos and the kind of bullshit that goes on there. This is a bit different. I'm not sure I can have an opinion on the matter, other than Elizabeth May, I suppose. Of course, it's Corey's fault. I don't think there's really much we could say other than just trying to keep our viewers abreast of what's happening.
Our correspondent Reed Small is on the scene, and he files updates already. There's already a story on there, and if you keep checking back with westernstandardonline.com, he will continue to have updates throughout the day.
Yeah, we've got Reed on the ground in the Lower Mainland, so we'll have a lot more there.
Good luck, everybody out there.
Yeah, Godspeed, especially your family.
Safe so far.
I remember when we had the big flood in 2013 here in Calgary. I was living in Bowness at the time, which was really hard hit, but I was on high ground within Bowness, and that was a terrifying experience. I think I was young enough to still think I was invincible, so I didn't leave. But
and there's a lot of farmers in the area that have spent their entire life, building up their herds. Now they're being told they have to let the leave and let the animals die. So you're not going to get you're going to get a lot of people actually that refuse to leave, and will do everything they can to protect their livelihood.
Well, yeah, so when my area was evacuated during the 2013 Calgary flood, I didn't leave because I was concerned about looters, and there were looters there, and police do intentionally suppress news of it because they don't want to raise alarm and have people, no pun intended, flooding back into the area because they're concerned for their property getting looted. So news of that kind of thing, I have no idea if this is happening in British Columbia, but was taking place here, and it never really got talked about for that reason. But if you're in those areas, the smart money is to leave. But I can very much appreciate, especially people with property who have spent their lives building this kind of thing up, being a bit hesitant to go.
And poor BC, they must have done something wrong to somebody. The fires early this year, and now this, they just can't catch a break. Mother Nature is a bitch.
It's almost sounding like something out of Revelation. I mean, I'm waiting for the locusts to come. I mean, we've had the plague, we're getting the floods, we've had the fires.
Frogs.
We're just not getting
Frogs.
a break. But I mean, and people familiar with that area, Princeton is an area I used to spend a lot of time in. I used to have placer gold claims out there. And you get the Similkameen River and the Tulameen River, they junction, and that town is built right on top of it. It gets flooded probably every 40 years or so, and this one's just brutal. And there's nowhere to go. You're in the valley. You've got to. Mm-hmm. So I mean, all I can do. I mean, aside from Elizabeth May using it to score her climate change points, I mean, all we should be doing right now is just hoping people can get out safely. We're going to see consequences for this for a year. I mean, that highway has been wiped out. We already had a supply chain nightmare. Nothing's coming off that coast to get out here for.
I don't know what you're talking about,
months.
Corey. There were no fires and floods before climate change.
Yeah, I know. This is the first decade of it.
When God flooded the earth and Noah got away, it's only because Noah was the only environmentalist, so he was spared.
God save the drunkard.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about something that I think is at least more has some entertainment value. The UCP Convention coming up this weekend. United Conservative Party, very united going into this weekend, right, Dave?
Not so much, Derek. Blockbuster letter yesterday from MLA Peter Guthrie, who represents Airdrie Cochrane. He was one of Jason Kenney's earliest supporters, and he wrote him what can only be called a scathing letter.
I thought even that's almost mild.
It's almost mild.
It was a spanking.
It was a spanking, yeah. Basically said the UCP is on the verge of collapse and accused the Premier of and his office of using taxpayers' money to work against MLAs that oppose him. I mean, it's for anybody else, it would be a political suicide note. But as you said, he just doesn't have the political capital to be kicking out people left, right, and center. Several things to watch out for this weekend at the AGM. The first thing Friday night is debate on the governance issues. This is where a motion being passed by an Edmonton riding basically says only Kenny can bring up new issues to the floor. And that has caused a huge stir among the grassroots.
No, it's already only Kenny can bring issues to the floor. That Edmonton motion is to raise the bar on how many constituency associations it takes.
From 22 to 29.
Yeah,
so.
to force a leadership review. Already, it's no one's allowed to bring forward new motions except for Kenny. That's already the case.
Yeah.
They just did that. There was no vote on that.
They had reached the threshold this week, announced at a press conference. They have reached the threshold of 22 ridings calling for an early leadership review. When asked about it, Kenny just said, well, that's party business. They'll deal with it. But he was certainly tense at the press conference with the Prime Minister on the daycare deal this week. You could see he was edgy, and I'm sure he'll be questioned on the letter today during a press briefing ongoing as we speak.
So, fun fact, most people don't know because it was only reported in the Western Standard. Remember when we were live tweeting UCP caucus meetings? We live tweeted weekly leaks. So when we were live tweeting the UCP caucus meeting where Kenny went to have Drew Barnes and Todd Lowen expelled from caucus, you know who was the cat's paw that he put up to make that motion to get rid of them?
I can take a pretty good guess.
That was Peter Guthrie. Now, we're not supposed to know that, but you know me, I've never missed a UCP caucus meeting.
Exactly.
So Peter Guthrie was the guy put up to do that. It seems, so he was the most Kool-Aid drinking member of Team Kenny. He was not just on Team Kenny, he was Kenny. And seems that has changed. So this shows that, and that vote to expel Barnes and Lowen barely passed. Barely passed. So at that point, Kenny, you could argue, commanded a bare majority of his caucus. And if you have a guy like Peter Guthrie, who was way over here, he was super Team Kenny, and he is now completely on the other side in a matter of just a few months. This shows that the situation in that caucus is still very fluid. Kenny is not winning former enemy allies back to himself. He's losing allies, turning them into implacable enemies.
Well, I think it's a case of, Kenny's been in the 20s popular support for ages now. But I think these individual MLAs are coming to the conclusion, I'm going to lose my job in less than 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the real panic is setting in. Yeah. They're afraid of losing a good job, a high-paying job, that they most certainly will, because UCP is going to get wiped out if the polls continue the way they are.
That's
correct?
Exactly what it is right now. When you look at the timelines, if you're looking at a general election, that's only a year and a half away now. Like, that's how fast the time has gone. And if you're going to move a leader out, hold a leadership race, which is going to take some months, and then establish a new leader to hopefully turn that boat back around into winning conditions, that new leader is going to have a year or less to do it. The caucus knows we can't kick that can down the road anymore. We're either going to have to hang with Kenny and somehow hope he can bring himself out of 20% support in a year and a half, or flush him out of there and get somebody new and hope for the best. As people are trying to blame it all on Gene.
Good image.
Yeah. And Gene certainly is coming out of the woodworks and stoking the fires, but there's more to it. Somebody else other than Gene might win. I'm certain there's other people with ambition, but this weekend is that chance. This is where they're going to either rip him out or they got to settle in with him.
So I was talking to one MLA in the UCP caucus just a few days ago, and this individual said, I won't even say he or she. This individual said, I wouldn't mind being unpopular if I felt we were doing the right thing. That says a lot about where they are. Right now, these guys feel they're doing the wrong thing and they're unpopular. Most politicians, the majority, are perfectly happy to do bad things that are against their principles if it's getting them popular, if it's going to buy them some votes, if it's going to get them reelected, keep them in power. They're happy to do the wrong thing. Some politicians are happy to they're fine being unpopular if they feel they're standing on principle, doing the right thing. But to do to have a government that you think is doing the wrong thing and to still be unpopular, I mean, that is on the grid of political decisions. That is the red zone. That is where you do not want to be. And that's where I think a majority of UCP MLAs and their grassroots members feel right now going into a convention. Now, this weekend, there's not going to be a vote on Jason Kenney's leadership. It's not on the agenda. You remember there was a big flare-up. Caucus was going to take Kenney down. He fought back, could have kicked the can down the road a bit and said, fine, we'll have a leadership review, and it's going to be in, what was it?
April, I think.
April, late April or something. But this was going to be under his control, the Central Party's control. That wasn't good enough. So now you have these constituency associations, which have hit the 22, which is required. They're going to try and overturn that at this convention. There's a couple of motions. Kenney has to retain control of the board, because remember, they're electing a new board here. There was an anti-Kenney candidate for the presidency of the party. They just disqualified the guy. Won't even let him run. If you're running against Kenney for the presidency, not allowed to run. But there's Kenney still has to fight to maintain control of that board. And there's a couple little proxy fights we're going to see. But the big thing is, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes down, is what's the reception of his keynote speech at lunch on Saturday? Now, we're going to carry that speech live. I want to know, though, normally, I've never been to a convention where everybody didn't stand and cheer for the leader like it was Stalin speaking. I mean, good parties and bad parties, everyone does it. You rally around the leader. Danielle Smith's last speech as Wildrose leader, it was a bit tepid. You know, there was some upset people with her in the room, but it was never hostile. I want to see how is this room? Is it just going to be kind of muted and people sit on their hands? I don't know.
I think he's got to give the political speech of his life, just to even, to try and stay alive. And this should have been a good week for Premier Kenney. $7 billion worth of new investment into Alberta, from Amazon to the big investments up new airline, and the big investments up in northern Alberta. It should have been a good week for him, but nobody's talking about that. Other than the Canadian win over Mexico, everybody's talking about the Kenney leadership and how it's falling to bits.
What do you expect to happen this weekend?
I really don't know. I mean, I've attended a lot of these AGMs. As you said, usually you get that rah-rah speech. There's always some discontent. I remember that with Danielle Smith at a couple. There were movements to try and seat her.
These are pretty small.
But these were
movements.
small, and he's got it coming from a few directions right now. And some members are going to be furious. We're seeing some nasty backdoor play. I mean, the policy wonks are saying, look, this is our bylaws. This is the rules we set about just for this kind of situation. And you're going to come in and try and change the rules retroactively when we've invoked it. That's not going to be well received. And I think there's going to be some people screaming from the audience if they can't, feel that they're being aired. I mean, that was the point of that trigger with those constituency associations. That was the bar set. What is the point of the party if they're going to just change the rules when you utilize the rules that were given to you to begin with? It says a lot about Kenney's recall legislation that he hasn't bothered putting in as well, because he knows damn well it's going to get used against him.
Well, because this thing where you get 22 CAs to force a leadership race, it is effectively a form of recall of leader. And so the first person recalled in the history of Alberta has been Jason Kenney. He has been recalled. Now, there's still going to be a vote on if he's going to be ousted, but they have met the bar to have a recall vote. Yeah, Jason Kenney is the first recalled politician in Alberta history.
And he's going to try political maneuvering to undercut and say that that's not valid after the fact. Because, I mean, that's been presented now. That's been signed. It's delivered under the rules of that party.
But that's a constitutional amendment. They're going to need 3/4 to pass that.
I believe so.
Well, let's see.
And that could be a very heated room going on. So,
yeah,
it's going to be something else to watch, that's for sure.
Wasn't on our agenda, but maybe we'll just take a moment to go through it. What the mainstream media and mainstream commentators say is a good news story, I think less so. Sharing a very friendly, warm, and cuddly moment was Alberta Premier Jason Kenney and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. They shared a podium today. Now, minutes before that press conference took place, you had those 22 constituency associations announced that they're recalling Kenney. Minutes later, he has to stand hand in hand with Trudeau announcing that the federal government is now going to impose its policies and provide funding for government control over daycare in Alberta, federal government control over daycare in Alberta. Something that Kenney has always said, hell no, come hell or high water, Ottawa does not get to run this. This is strictly provincial jurisdiction. Ottawa has as much business in daycare as Alberta has in running, ordering the army to attack Kandahar or something. They have no business in it, as we have no business with the military. Not their job. But money's money, and he's caved in. Tell us a bit about the announcement, and what was that presser like? You watched it.
It was tense. It was very tense. Trudeau, you could almost see him smirking behind his face mask, and because he knew that the 22 writing story had come out about an hour or so before, and you could just see Kenny was tense and uncomfortable. The daycare announcement, somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 billion of federal money coming into Alberta to create $10 a day daycare spaces within 5 years. Albertans get their daycare rates cut in half starting next year. So it's again another piece of good news really for Alberta.
Good news if you think the government should run daycare. Yes.
I mean, apart from Kenny breaking another promise, but I got a vaccination card to show you if you believe that. You could see Kenny was uncomfortable. He was asked about it during the press conference, which had to be a major embarrassment to him because he could feel Trudeau's eyes behind him, burning a hole in his back and smirking. When asked about it, he was very terse. Basically said, it's a party issue. I have no comment. And they went on and bumped elbows at the end of it and went their separate ways. So, tense would be the word used to describe that.
I have never in my life enjoyed a Justin Trudeau quip until then. He had something to say. Justin Trudeau was asked about J.C. Kenney's woes. As J.C. Kenney is standing there beleaguered at the podium, he looks like the Black Knight in Monty Python. No arms and legs left. It's just a flesh wound. And Justin Trudeau was asked about, the guy standing next to you is practically dead. What do you think about this? And Justin Trudeau's only answer was, the Liberals have never been so united as we are right now. And I don't know. I've never actually thought anything he said was particularly witty. And I thought that was he can't turn around to the guy right beside him and say, Jason Kenney's a XYZ and berate him. That's very unstatesmanlike, but his answer was actually strangely decent.
That was the culmination of political games, and Kenney was grossly outmaneuvered by Trudeau. I mean, he was in a rock and a hard place. He was put into a position where he's going to, what are you going to say no to a guy standing there with a check? So you can't say no to it, but you've already built your wall and said that we're never going to take it. So he was already, bleeding on the ground. Not to mention you got your own party, flaming in the background behind you. And Trudeau took advantage of that and twisted that knife. It's just a rotten week. The only thing I can say is I think if Kenney has any hope of recovering and getting a mandate that it could be accepted, I think he should say, let's do it. Let's go for it. Head to the review. Pull it down and say, and start campaigning for himself and get out there and get a mandate from the members because he's not going to have one otherwise.
The only way this guy gets through it is they're going to have to cheat.
Well,
they're going to have to cheat. Like that's it. There is no way to get through it. Kenney is more popular with the public at large right now than with his own party. And he is not popular with the public at large. He's about 24, 25%, depending on the day. He's more popular with them than with his own members right now. I mean, if you let his own caucus vote on it with a secret ballot, he'd have been gone months ago.
And party solidarity is a good segue into the next section.
I agree. Erin O'Toole, Denise Bathurst. So Denise Bathurst.
She's a senator from Saskatchewan. She launched a petition on Monday saying it's time Erin O'Toole has basically abandoned all the conservative policies. She calls for an immediate review within 60 days. That didn't go over too well with Leader O'Toole. He came out the next day and actually fired her over voicemail and said that kind of dissent is not going to be tolerated.
That's what I do when I'm being a tough guy. I fire everyone by voicemail.
Exactly. I've got a tape full of them. Batters.
We always make up.
Batters is not the first Conservative to come forward. There was a member of the Tory National Council called Bert Chen, who the day after the election called for Kenney to be have his leadership reviewed. O'Toole.
So we're mixing up our beleaguered
conservative leaders.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
He was
Erin O'Kenney.
Erin O'Kenney. he was rewarded with a 60-day suspension. So there is simmering discontent. There's no doubt about it. So now you've got MPs twittering out, that they're lining up behind O'Toole and he's our man. But there's some talk going on in the back rooms, I'm sure.
Fun fact: since Denise Batters is gone, there is now not a single Conservative senator from Alberta or Saskatchewan. Not one.
Speechless.
Isn't that wild? Like we have these Senate spots that we don't get to pick, and so with her ousted by with Trudeau refusing to appoint elected Conservatives to these spots, and O'Toole firing the unelected Conservatives from these spots, there is now not a single Conservative senator from Saskatchewan or Alberta.
Because Black retired, so yeah.
Yep. Oh, actually, he was already gone. He was in the. When I say Conservative, I mean the official Conservative caucus. There's the independent Senate group. There's two independent groups.
Yeah, but I think Black was considered Conservative, wasn't he?
Well, he was
But
elected
just
as a
left.
Conservative, but then he left and went with a different group. There's a couple of different groups that have small C Conservative people, but there's not a. There's now
Formal
no longer a capital C Conservative senator from either province. Quite incredibly. Is this okay? So when Barnes and Lowen spoke out against Kenney, he brought the hammer down. They were gone. Now he barely managed to get that through. Kenney has not since fired everybody who has spoken out from caucus against him because he would have almost no caucus left if he did. But it is, for better or worse, it's a symbol, a sign of strength when a leader can bring the hammer down on you and get rid of someone at their will. It shows that they're in command of the party. They're in command of caucus. I think it's a bad thing that we have to do this, that this is how we do it. But Kenney can no longer exercise that. Now, you have tons of MLAs saying, this guy's a bozo, he's got to go. Kenney does not get rid of them. It's not because he's just allowing dissent, it's because he doesn't have the power to anymore. In O'Toole's case, he did manage to get rid of the senator. Is this a sign that you think that O'Toole still has control over his caucus?
It's not a good sign at all. I mean, and a senator, she's going to remain there. I mean,
she's not going away.
No, Denise Batters is a relatively young one. Actually, she could stay there for decades. I mean, this is Canada. It's not like, okay, I kicked her out. She's going to have to run as an independent. She'll be gone in a year and a half. No, she's going to be there, and she's pissed off, and she's got a platform. As a symbolic spanking.
She's going to have a job longer than Erin O'Toole.
Yeah, at this rate, both leaders are in terrible trouble. I mean, what do? You can't let them keep going, picking at you from the sidelines either. But when you come down like this, it's not saving you.
Batters said she will not be silenced. I should think the quote was, she will not be silenced by a leader so weak he has to do it by voicemail.
Yeah, the next Conservative leader will put her back in caucus.
She's going to be back because Erin O'Toole, I mean, he could last 6 weeks, 6 months, maybe 6 years. Who knows? But one way or another, she's not going away, and there'll be another Conservative leader who says, yeah, I'd like to have another senator in our caucus. She's going to be back. She just sits pretty, doesn't change anything for her. She just doesn't have to deal with this.
Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does seem that Erin O'Toole is not on solid ground, but I'd say compared to the situation with Kenney in Alberta, he's got an iron grip on that party compared to what we're seeing in Alberta.
It's less
right now.
bad than Kenney's situation, but it's not good.
Well, but I've never seen a situation as bad as Kenney's right now.
No.
Redford had more control over her party the day she stepped down than Kenney has today. I've never seen anything like this.
And remember, O'Toole was able to get rid of Derek Sloan, too.
Yeah.
Right, so he had enough power then. There was a secret ballot, but I'm not sure how close it was. But Sloan ended up getting canned.
Yeah, but it's one. You could do that with your MPs. You could do that with your MLAs because independents don't really get elected. So you get rid of them. Okay, they're a pain in the butt until the next election, whenever that is. But then they're very likely going to be gone. It's extremely rare that an independent like Judy Raymond-Waybalt will get elected. But with a senator, good point. They don't go away. There is no election. They're just going to sit there, kind of like a gargoyle on the Parliament buildings, looking at you long after you're gone. They're not going anywhere. Okay. Well, let's wrap it up there. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank Dave and Corey for your usually intelligent comments. And all of you who are loyal Western Standard members, if you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, go to westernstandardonline.com, click on membership. You could try it free for 15 days. It's only $10 a month or $99 a year for unlimited Western Standard content. Be sure to tune in this weekend. We're going to have live coverage from the Alberta Very United Conservative Party Convention. We're going to be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday if we're feeling good. We're going to be covering the Kenney speech and some of the debates from the floor. We expect this to be, as we were saying, kind of this is one of the lead-up battles. This is not going to be the big battle, I think, but it's going to be a pretty big and important one in shaping the future of the United Conservative Party and the future of Alberta Premier Jason Kenney. So tune in. It's going to be fun, I promise. Thank you all very much for joining us today. God bless.
Good luck to people in BC.
Indeed.